Okay, so I've got four videos, four video links. That's what you sent?
I think so. Maybe five. There was one short one. Let me just.
I just pulled up your email. Let me look. So two videos of each GNR. Um,
I think it ended up being five. The fifth is a very short one.
so I've got
Um,
video one, Geisle, hand walking, and video two the same. And then your notes are Geisle getting much better, allowing, accepting me on his side. For a reward and a break, I walk in front of him. G is more comfortable on right leading. Tested right turns from left side, and G seems happier. Halts without touching. Lead 99%, turning into me 1% better. Okay. He seems to walk straight without rotation, offers his back, but then hesitant, still just playing around with it. Okay, so let's look at that first, and then I can pull your email back up if we need to review some of your questions.
okay, and I have the email right in front of me. I have to get one more thing, and I'm
Oh,
still
great.
talking to you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Sorry.
Okay. And then I think,
That's Rani, actually.
right. So let
We
me
can do
go
Rani.
to
It
the,
doesn't matter.
no, I have all four pulled up as different windows.
Okay.
Um, so easy enough to switch back and forth. Okay. So this is the first one on your list for Geisle.
Okay. Could be.
Let me just hit play. So how's it sounds like he's doing better overall. He's not as
Yes.
nervous. And this is the hand walking. You're going around on you kind of using the logs as your rail.
A little bit between
Okay.
the outside fence and the logs, and I try to get a little bit distance between him and me. He's not too keen on that one, but that's okay.
Okay.
One thing at a time.
And you have a lead rope or
This one, yeah, this one I have a
yes.
lead rope
Okay.
because we talked about lead rope. He does better without it, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I try to be very conscientious on not having a weight on the lead rope to pull his head in or not pulling. So often I rather put my hand towards him,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to work. And it's
Yes.
all
And
very slow.
is that why you're up in parallel to the neck rather than the shoulder?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, if I'm on his shoulder, so it used to up to about a month, maybe 2 months, uh, going on either side. When I was in front of him, you could not go. He
Okay.
blocked me. So this is a big progress that he lets
Yes.
me be next to him. And when I walk on his shoulder, he has more of a tendency to turn in
So
on
this
the.
is a great way to kind of move the ultimate goal. Like what you're doing is dealing with him, his insecurities, a little bit of his defensiveness, and kind of really gently moving him in the direction you want to go. And it's beautiful how you've adapted to his issues. And so I agree with you for building the foundation. I think you do need to be up parallel to the neck. And when he does, like, it's just going to inherently prevent him from overbending the neck. And when
Mhm.
you slowly come down to halt, little by little, he'll learn to walk forward and halt without having to swing his butt around and bend his neck. Um, Only after he can do that, then I would start looking at the hand walking in preparation for riding is going to be a little bit different. And you can play back and forth between what you're doing now and then moving gradually to the way I map out the hand walking is specifically as a simulation for the horse to what it will feel like to be ridden.
Okay. I don't know. I don't see my picture on the. Do you see me?
Yep.
Okay. So with him, the goal is not to ride because of his past. So I don't know if you remember, but a month ago was
No,
the
I'm
very first
sorry.
time.
I shouldn't say ride. I should say balance. Um,
Okay.
so when like everything on the in the groundwork, the first layer of groundwork is I do because I do all the same groundwork. It's not a big menu. Like I get
Yep.
everything done in a, I think 10 exercises. And the first layer of every exercise is for the purpose of building the bond, strengthening trust, overcoming defensiveness, and sort of getting them in the learning frame of mind. That's always the first layer, whether it's hand walking, lunging, long reins, whatever you're doing. That first layer is critical. And then the second layer that I usually refer to as preparing for riding is also how we work on the balance from the ground.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
so it kind of if I say riding, that's what I mean.
That's
And
what you
and
mean.
I
Okay.
yeah, and I understand he may never want to be ridden again. The fact that you sat on him is huge. But we go, well, we're just going to work on your balance and see what you have to say about it.
Yeah.
Because him even coming to you and wanting to be tacked up was a huge surprise.
Yeah. And he
And
still does that.
yeah,
He
and
still,
even kind of putting him back in regular work was not something you expected to do. So I go, let's just see where it goes.
yeah. And there's a couple moments where I'm in the outside of the holds and he's on the inside and he actually goes straight instead of turning into me. And this going backwards is he feels very comfortable. So he likes to do that. So in between, I do that just to give him a breather.
Hmm.
And then we go out again. And that way I can actually sneak onto his side too.
Yes.
See,
Yes. And that's
and I thought,
exactly like the thing that you're so good at is really reading the horse's energy and everything, like, even though it's nonverbal, a very complicated physiological response boils down to yes and no. And you're
mhm,
very, very good at getting the horse to say yes. And that is how you've learned to adapt with both of these horses is you kind of even if they struggle, I go that just because they say yes doesn't mean it's easy for them. But the
yeah,
fact that they are willing to try, they feel safe making mistakes, you can make corrections and they don't freak out. All of that is the horse saying yes, 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 yes. When the horse works against us and defends themselves from us, that would be what I call a no.
yeah,
And so I almost feel like you've got this. Every exercise you start with Geisle especially, you're very good at getting a yes. So where I feel like I can help you is how do we move from just a yes, giving him lots of latitude and comfort, into also saying yes about changing his balance and his movement.
okay.
Does
And
that
that's
make
where I was
sense?
not, yeah, I wasn't sure if he is ready, I'm ready, because he just seems to start, like yesterday I played with him. I don't train him, I play with him.
Mm.
Uh, and I could tell he was done. And I said, okay, I know you're done, but let's do one more lap around it and just do one more lap and we're done. And he did.
Yes.
But he was reluctant, but he said, okay, I don't want it in my the sensation I got from him is human words. Okay, I'm not into it, but we'll do it.
Yeah. And that's exactly a good test. Like that's spot on because once you start to ask any horse to alter the internal coordination of the skeleton, even when we're doing the very best work and working with the very best theory, that process involves a little bit of a sense of disorientation, just like for you as a rider, and kind of working some muscles that haven't been worked in a while. And even sometimes letting go of chronic tension can be a little uncomfortable. So there's
Mhm.
kind of inherent challenges in the process, even with the best work and the best approach and the best theory. Changing internal coordination is a big deal. So, sort of asking him for little things like that, like you go, okay, I know you're done, but could you put just enough effort in? We could do one more and then we'll quit. That's exactly how you cultivate your ability to say, we could work through this and not have him get defensive as he starts to feel a little different or a little uncomfortable, or the newness of changing his balance starts to make him unsure,
Yeah.
because all of those things are inherent in the process. And I think we have this image in the horse industry that once we get it just right ourselves, our horse sails into perfection without a ripple. And I go, it is a back and forth how do I want to say? Um,
Cyclical. I got
cyclical
it.
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I always tell my horses, like, okay, we trust each other now. If you don't trust me later, that's okay. I
We'll
don't
work
always
through it.
trust you.
Exactly.
It's a back and forth and back and forth. I don't take it for granted that Geesley trusts me. I mean, he trusts me,
Mhm.
but he doesn't trust me in every aspect of his life.
Absolutely.
And that's something I'm aware of it. And I sometimes I'm like, okay, you don't trust me right now, but just
Right.
get with it and maybe you come out better the other end.
No, and
And
your timing and your approach with him and with Rainey is just so communicative. Like you really kind of feel the threshold and you don't go blasting through it unaware, which is with people's best intentions. They just are not sometimes aware of the horse's communication coming back to us and then kind of inadvertently cause, some defensiveness. You just don't have that problem. That is a gift you have that I go, you're doing great. So within the back and forth, because Geasley is very delicate, I like how you give him breaks and do the bonding, and what you're working towards for his balance would be that you can hand walk him with either the logs on the outside or the fence line, and you can walk him in a horse width corridor around your path of travel with you at the shoulder. And once you get there, what you're teaching him is the halter and the lead rope simulate the bridle and one rein. Your body parallel to the shoulder simulates your stable vertical alignment in the saddle or on his
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
And then I would carry maybe a small light whip, even if he's afraid of them, or use your hand, but
Yeah.
you need something that simulates a leg aid from the ground.
So what
So
I
either a tap with the lead rope or a tap with your hand or a tap with a little like, riding whip, any of those things. But when you ask him to go forward, you're using a leg aid for forward. You never use the rein really in the hand walking because your body and the fence line are creating the corridor for steering, but you just have slack in the rein. And I typically will sort of touch my hand lightly to the shoulder to help create that corridor for the front end and the neck. And that is where you're starting to move into the coordination of the skeleton. If he's not ready for that, if that's too, like a lot of horses, when we start to get specific, they take the aids as pressure, and he might do that. And so when you let him have a little latitude and make more decisions, it tends to take the pressure off of them. So you want to kind of swing between you do it your way, and now we're going to gradually become more and more specific about this narrow path of travel and my body position here. and you moving forward from a leg aid and stopping from a rein aid. And so it's that light lift of the lead rope. It's almost nothing. They usually
Oh yeah.
stop before they feel any pressure. Because when you're really tuned in and synchronized, they really are following your body, even though you're not on their back. So the in-hand work and the hand walking, I still act as if I'm riding, and it influences the balance, even though we're not physically on top of them. And then being specific, leg aid, rein aid, synchronized stability during motion. That's kind of how you're simulating the riding from the ground that influences his balance, physical coordination as if you were riding.
Okay. So as of this point, he does walk relatively straight. He's not like very wobbly like Randy. He is
Mhm.
more straightforward. That's how what I see. Since he still turns his head to the left, one elite to the left, I'm going to continue for a little bit to stay on his head, but inch myself back further.
Yes. Hmm.
And with the whip, I'm not always convinced that I have to use him. What I worked with Geisle because he's afraid, still afraid or still hesitant and kind of shuts down with whips, leads, and everything. I brush him with my hand
Perfect.
from the shoulder, or I can go further back and make a forward and up movement to kind of invite him to go forward instead of just brushing him from top to down.
And I just use a tap. So whether I'm using the end of a lead rope, a whip, or my hand, the purpose of the reason I use a whip in the groundwork, a long dressage riding whip, that's all I really use, unless I'm lunging. But the reason I use it is because it works mostly what they call proprioceptively. So if somebody taps you on the shoulder lightly, your attention goes to where that person is touching you
Mm-hmm.
automatically. And so when I want to work with the hindquarter engagement and stability, I can reach the actual hind legs with the whip better than I can with my hand. And I want to tap them on the hind legs to sort of bring their attention to the hind legs. That's the only reason I use a whip. And it's as light as me tapping my shoulder like this, because what it really does is get the horse's attention in order to go forward. I'm sort of saying in that gesture, from here, can you move forward from here? And that's the only purpose to me of the whip is I can reach the actual hindquarters, whether I'm riding or on the ground.
The
But you don't,
hindquarters.
if they're sensitive, just tap with your fingers. Like you can do the brushing movement, that's fine. But it really just brings their attention to the back half. And what you're asking him to do is, can you find your hind legs, both for pushing forward and when you sort of lift the lead rope for halt, again, you're giving them time to control the downward transition through the hind legs. And the reason he bends the neck is because the engagement is a little tricky for him. He's easier to lead forward. And when he
Yeah.
stops, he kind of swings his butt, which just tells you that the stability and the engagement of the hindquarters is difficult for him. And that's probably why he didn't want to be ridden. And so when you're walking him, I just saw what I wanted to see on this video, and then we'll move on. Once he's walking, the way you know internally whether or not you're on an accurate path of travel or not, that he's got enough hindquarter engagement, enough alignment of the spine, and he's stabilized the rotation to a minimal degree on all three of those, is when he lengthens the neck like that and he stays in motion, right? Just there where he shortens the neck, he lost the straightness before he swung the butt, before he
Okay.
bent the neck.
And for
Is that?
him, this is often a sign of like, I'm done. I'm
Mhm,
so I take a break. But
Hmm.
here, sometimes I'm like, okay, if you need to do this, that's fine. And let's go try it again.
Yes. And it's already better because you're positioning your body forward. You're still allowing him to make the same error, but with your body up by the head, he is kind of figuring out I could stop without swinging my butt sideways and bending my neck. And so your approach is perfect. Like, I don't want to monkey with how you're adjusting within the context of this exercise because that
Yeah.
part
And
you're
I
doing beautifully.
try more to stop on the straight so he can't really, like in the circle here, he has too much room to move.
Hmm.
So I try to do it on the right side, when we're closer. And I actually, before I do it, before I stop him, I breathe. I think about slow down, stop, breathe down, and then turn my body a little bit towards his face. So he can't do it. He's a little bit locked.
Yes.
And just to get him comfortable to stop straight. He's doing it more often than before.
Yes.
Right.
And just to clarify, the ultimate goal, even for him, because it's related to his balance, is internally, like I said, they're going to keep it's actually the whole top line releasing tension. When you stabilize the axial skeleton left to right and you have just enough engagement, they can control their movement. They fall into the posture of long and low because the muscles of the top line are releasing that shortening contraction because they
Yep.
don't need it for stability anymore. They've got skeletal stability. So that posture tells us on any path of travel at any speed, groundwork or riding, that you've gotten out of the most dysfunctional posture where they drop the back and it destabilizes the whole body. Long and low is just the first step out of that. That is the
Yep.
opposite of that imbalance. Long and low voluntarily offered, especially when we see the neck muscles lengthen, that tells you internally the horse has stabilized alignment, rotation, and a minimal degree of pelvic engagement. When you also refine that use of the body, you can get that same posture on a very precise path of travel. That's more challenging than getting it on kind of a random path of travel. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you start to strengthen the muscular support by increasing the challenge for the same coordination. And then another challenge is for you to be just like what you're doing on Rainy, the way you ride, when you stay vertical and you sort of slow your body down without going backwards or forwards, that is the halt aid, whether we're riding or hand walking. And they feel it even if we're next to them rather than
Yeah.
on them. And so you can really practice everything you're learning on Rainy riding, you just do from the ground and gradually making your way back to his shoulder when he
Yeah.
can stop straighter. Hmm.
Okay. Um, I don't see as like when he walks and I watched the video, I don't see him rotating a lot.
And it's not
I
something that we can visually assess. It's not always something, sometimes when it's really um, pretty bad is when we can see it. If it's just
Okay.
a little bit and it's subtle, we don't always see it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And the
Okay.
same with like a horse can look straight from nose to tail, but still have little lateral bends, little rotational issues going on that we can't detect visually. So the way we know that they're happening is either through the posture or through the movement.
Okay. The posture. He would. This is actually the first time he always has his head relatively low
Hmm.
when we walk. But I noticed a couple times he actually went lower because he ended up below my knee, his head. And I'm like, oh,
Yes,
that's interesting. And
that's what
he
you want.
he licks and chews when I walk backwards after we did a little bit straight walking.
Hmm.
And that to me is like, okay, he's releasing a little bit, and then we go back.
Yeah, I love how you mix it up for him. What I love, like right here, is the video is starting. His ears are sort of half out, and he's
I
really like when the ears
can't.
go towards us or halfway
Mhm.
out, and they sort of are calm and concentrating. This is him feeling, bringing into his conscious awareness how he's moving, what is comfortable, what's not comfortable. They have to feel safe with us in order to take that internal focus. But what you've got going with him is he's very focused inside on what he's feeling and experiencing, and he likes it. So he keeps trying more for you.
He's trying hard. I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
So here, when he looks kind of long, but the pole is level to the back, I suspect, and especially the way he halts, I think he's not really coming out of the downward direction of the spine fully. He's in the last few degrees of what we call the posture of extension. It's not completely upside down panicky. It's like the last little bit of that posture. And when he puts the neck longer and the head lower, that's when I think you're actually getting the improvement in the coordination regarding internal straightness. So
Okay.
when he's kind of level, it's a sneaky posture. It's actually what I discussed with Steph, because her horse was in, and it's a I call it the posture of isometric holding because that's what the back muscles are doing. It's like the back is still mostly pushing down, but the
Hmm.
muscles are now in a holding pattern. So we get the visual impression of long and level, but it's not stable, it's not balanced. We still have movement issues
Yeah.
and leg kinematic issues. And so here, as you're walking him on this second video, this is looking better and better and better. But I would like to see this particular horse who's quite tight through the neck. Part of it's his breed, part of it's his history, but to really lengthen all the way back to the tail, I think his nose, his pole would have to be pretty well below his withers for that to be authentic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he kind of goes, he doesn't really get high-headed. He just kind of goes between holding a little bit and then letting go more fully, and holding a little
He's
bit and letting go more fully.
he's very sweet, but he is holding a lot of just like Rani. Rani holds a lot of tension in her. It doesn't seem like it, but she's very tight.
Oh, absolutely. And think of it this way. The posture physiologically, if the horse goes into fight or flight, we see the head go up, the neck gets short, the back drops, the pelvis disengages. That is that posture of extension is physiologically connected to fight and flight or feeling insecure, stressed, right? The posture of rest and digest, physiologically, when they shift fully into the parasympathetic nervous system, it's the grazing posture. It's a deep long and low. It's a complete letting go of that tension through the top line. So they go into the posture of extension for only two reasons. One, fear or stress, and two, instability. So that's the instinctual use of their body. And most horses, especially Icelandics, are trained in that posture because they
Yeah.
can move through training faster on the surface. So it's been this poor horse, he was defending himself by bucking and bolting because he had gotten to a point where he just couldn't cope anymore, which means it was quite a severe pattern in his body even before you got him. And
Yeah.
he can completely reverse that. But knowing his history, his breed, and just looking at his body, you are 90% of the way there from everything you've done. to get him completely out of that posture of extension. And
Okay.
he
So I
he's even doing it in the hand walking. It's just he's more the prevalent posture when you're walking him is still that isometric holding posture, the last
yeah,
few degrees of extension through the spine.
and that's actually him being able to walk this low is he used to do only when he was behind me. So I give him a lot of credit that
Yes.
he is starting to let go. So I
Yes.
thought that maybe we just continue to do the try to get him to do his release when he's ready and do it more often, more frequently, and then maybe move on to more specific, me moving a little further back and
You can play with it because a couple different approaches you could take. Because, like I said, you've worked through, I would say, the the fear that motivates that posture. I don't see that at all. So the only other reason he's adopting that posture is instability. He's not good at working in long and low compared to that posture of extension. So you can
yeah.
play with it two ways and ask him the question because I never know until I try that if you put him against the fence line or the logs in a very specific horse width corridor, whether you're at his head, his neck, or his shoulder, if you start to get more precise about the path of travel, does it help him stay in long and low or get to long and low sooner? So you
Okay.
try it and you see how he responds,
Okay.
right? If it puts too much pressure on him, it won't work that way. If it's just a physical stability issue, it could speed up his process of change,
Okay.
right? And then again, the same thing, playing with your body position, but within the framework of the exercise hand walking, you can do less support, more support, be less specific, more specific. And the horse, I always let the horse guide me because I never know with an individual horse. As soon as I say, oh, I think it would work better this way, that horse makes a liar out of me and does the complete opposite. And I go, yeah, never mind. Just learned to say, try it, see what he says about it.
But Geesley's actually pretty good, and I guess we have a good communication, or I can read him really well. That at this point, I can tell if he's like, I don't want to do it, or like, okay, slow down.
Hmm.
It's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so play with being more because balance is just precision. That's all balance
Mhm.
is. It's precision through the use of the spine. And so he trusts you enough. He's not holding that posture of isometric holding. He's not doing it for any fear reason whatsoever. So it tells me it's just physically difficult for him to stay in long and low. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's where playing with some precision on your path of travel, um, maybe playing with walk, halt transitions on purpose, maybe trying different things that challenge him, you might be surprised that that helps him find the posture of long and low easier or hold it longer.
Yeah. Try to play with him a little bit like with Ranny. Um, Used to be any fast movement, he ended up in China. So
Hmm.
now I can jump up and down because I'm going, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And he's kind of like put his head up and then he said, okay, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. So I try to be more playful and see what I can get out of him, even if it's not a long and low posture, but more of a release in general and let go.
Yes. Well, and your evolution in what I see as your evolution in your writing, um, is I would never, ever, ever change the softness and the connection that comes so naturally to you. So when you think about becoming more specific, you don't want your energy to ever change. You
Mm-mm.
just simply walk a different path, make your corrections to be more supportive or more specific, but never ever with a different energy than what you always have going. And it's a trick for a lot of people because as soon as we think about being specific, we tend to alter our energy, like maybe because we get focused, there's an intensity that comes into the energy or a sharpness or a quickness. But it is very possible to be as specific as walking a balance beam with the very energy that you have right now, very calm, very communicative. And that's what would guide both of your horses into better and better and better balance.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
what I see you sometimes I can see in you that you think specific, I'm going to have to change my softness. And I want to just repeat, never, never change your softness. It's beautiful.
Well, I'm not so much of, I don't think, especially with Geisle, I can ever not be soft with him. Um, but I can change my energy and going like, okay, we can move a little faster here. Don't fall asleep. Let's go. I can do this with him a little bit. I can definitely do it with Rainy.
Well,
But
and
with him,
maybe turn that around when we're being specific. The thing that goes through my head because and I'm just careful with the words because the words tend to influence our energy. So I think in my mind a couple of things. When the horse gets a little unsure or challenged, part of me is the cheerleader that says, you can do it. I believe in you. And so being specific is a positive thing. And I also think of always asking the question, does going faster help you? Does going slower help you? Does being more specific on the path of travel help you? And then you already have this yes no rapport where you can read the response very clearly. So I go as I adjust my energy or I become more precise or I speed them up, slow them down, change the steering, whatever I'm doing, I'm putting it in the context because I don't know. He's the only
mhm.
one who can tell me this is helpful, this is not helpful. Yes, that works. No, that doesn't work. And so I always go into that with a question, especially when I'm starting to become specific. I go, if we narrow this, does that help you? And we think it's harder, so the horse isn't going to like it. But a lot of times the horse goes, wow, thanks, that's what I needed. And we
It's
know right away.
he's looking a lot of Rainy. Like when I let him out of the paddock, um, Rainy usually runs up the little incline and comes to me, and then Geisle start picking it up too. So when Rainy comes, I give her a treat, then I ask her to go on. And then when Geisle comes, and then I walk a little bit with him and I tell him how amazing it was that he ran with me. And then I start running a little bit ahead of him and I can hear his feet going. So
Yeah.
is that part of him feeling comfortable to move fast around a human
Yes.
on the ground? I think that's something he was never allowed.
No, in your word, I play with him. So when you increase excitement energy, it's
Yeah.
playful, right?
Yes.
But if it freaks him out, you're also very good at going, sorry about that. Never mind. Never mind.
Yes. I've done that before quite a few
I,
times.
I I blow it all the time. And then I go to the horses and I'm like, I'm sorry. My bad. Let's
Yeah.
let's start over. No big deal. But I think with Geasley, I would give the hand walking exercise overall quite a bit of time playing
Mhm.
between becoming more specific, less specific, get in front of him, work at his head, his neck, his shoulder, and just kind of keep mixing it up. And
Okay.
and and if you find being on a more specific path of travel is helpful, then add that in. If he
Yeah.
gets worried and it doesn't help, take it back out and go, we'll get there later. No big deal. Right.
Okay.
So, all of those things, all of the elements of the end goal in mind is that he's long and low, on a specific path of travel, synchronizing with you between the go aid and the woe aid. And so all of that simulates him being ridden. And any part of that could work very well for him, or he's not ready for it yet. And so
Okay.
that's kind of what you want to think about, is going back and forth. When he says, no, not ready yet, you go, fine, we can get there later. No big deal.
Yeah. And that corridor, more specific corridor, when I look at this video, the one on the picture on the right, or there's the fence and then the logs, and it's pretty straight. The video is a little skewed. I think it's fish-eyed a little bit, but that is where I walk a lot of times inside the poles,
Hmm.
and he's against the fence. So we are very, very small movement for him to turn around too much, or he usually just turns into me, but he can't because the fence is there.
Yes,
So
yes.
that
And
seems to have.
if you think of any path of travel as, I always called it a sidewalk. I go anywhere I go with the horse, the sidewalk is about a horse width path. And if you think of it as a sidewalk, the important part of your path of travel is the left and right side. But a sidewalk can become a roundabout, it can be an S pattern, it can be a weird shape, it can be a square
Yeah.
or a rectangle. But the left right side of the sidewalk is your path of travel. That is starting to say, because the loss of steering, a horse falling off the sidewalk, is related to the lateral bending or the rotation or the engagement that might look okay to us. But if
Yeah.
they can't easily stay on a sidewalk width path, then they have a balance issue. They're not as stable as we think, or they're not in the right coordination.
And I would think that the straighter, if we walk straight to start with, I can be more specific. And when we go around the corner, it can't be exactly the same. I can allow him to slack or whatever, not be as perfect, but concentrate at least on one part of the micro arena to walk in a
Yes.
more narrow corridor.
And the same thing, even staying on the sidewalk can become a gradual thing, right? So you're not pushing and pulling and holding him on the sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah,
Him
yeah.
him staying on the sidewalk with minimal aids in the posture of long and low is part of how we recognize that he has stabilized alignment, rotation, and pelvic engagement. That's the only
Okay,
reason it's important, is because it shows us he's really there. Because
okay,
I think too, when they're in that posture of long and level, but it's not actually balanced, you won't they won't be able to stay on a sidewalk path, or
okay,
they tend to stop a lot or rush a little or refuse forward. So there's still movement issues that would not be there if the spine were actually correctly coordinated.
okay. What, you two?
It's okay.
Well,
Um,
I hope I'm not arguing about it. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, this is Geisle, and how do I put this all together before the Zoom is over?
well, and that's what, do you have any questions? Because he's one that I want, think of it as this, that we believe in Geisle's full recovery and healing.
Yep.
And but we're not in a hurry to get there. You might
Mhm.
run out of years before he actually became rideable, but I'm always moving to that ultimate goal. I believe
Yeah.
in the horse's healing that much. And so within that framework, I'm never going to rush or push the horse, but I'm always going to play with, can we be a little more precise here or there? How's that working for you? Because that is the healing.
Yeah.
Changing the coordination is the healing of the movement and a lot of other systems in the body. So I move there. I don't want to use the word fast. What do I want to say? I stay gently focused on it because I want to move there efficiently.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the body is always moving towards the improvement or the dysfunction, and it's never static. So if I gently stay focused on the improvement, as soon as he's ready to change, I'm right
He
there
will.
with him, giving him more challenges. And if he's not ready to change, I can always back off and go backwards. No big deal.
And I think that's what we have going, that what I figured out with him pretty good.
Hmm.
When he's like, before he gets overwhelmed and wants to bolt
Yes.
and pull, I can feel it. It's like, okay, fine. Let's just, you follow me. I walk
Yes.
backward.
Yes. Perfect.
And with
Yes.
him, I'm very good about it. With Rainy, sometimes I have no clue.
No, and I look at any horse I work with, especially green horses, if they get to the point of bucking, rearing, bolting, especially if I'm on their back, but even a lot of times on the ground, um, I feel like I blew it. I missed it. I missed the signs that they were hitting a stress threshold. And so to me, I don't want to push a horse to that level of stress and fear that they feel the need to buck and bolt and rear. Yeah. And he has a habit. It's sort of like what he came with. And so
Yeah, that's
working
his
your,
go-to. Yeah, it's
yeah.
his go-to thing.
And that's a very difficult habit to break because it takes a boatload of trust because the trust has been shattered. And
Yeah,
so,
when I started trimming his feet, and I didn't want to do leads, I did Liberty. Um, it's occasionally it was good, 1 foot, 2 feet, and then a third foot. Seemingly out of the blue, he bolted, and then I'm thinking, like, yeah, you missed that spot here. You
yeah.
missed the point where he was right before he was bolting,
Well, and
and he can bolt.
he doesn't give you much warning, I'm sure.
He does. I did at this point. I know the warning signs, but I ignored it. So
There you
I
go.
didn't ignore it. I just didn't recognize it. I was too focused on getting the feet done.
Yeah.
But he runs away and then he turns around. It's like, just had to do it. I couldn't handle it anymore. You didn't pay attention. And it's like, okay,
Yes.
are you ready?
Yes.
And it comes, okay, let's do this again.
Yes.
So with him, I have much more of a give and take, but I needed feedback on, okay, is he a little bit more, from the looks of it, he doesn't have that excessive swing and like Rainey's all over. So I feel like I'm a little bit ahead with him.
He's also
Uh,
different in that he's better at hiding things.
yeah,
And
yes.
and so his imbalances might not be as obvious, but they're just as important. He might
Yeah.
have more muscular tension than Rainy, and as he gets into long and low, you might be surprised to see instability increasing because the muscles are becoming more supple, because he kind of holds himself a bit.
Yes.
And so you may not really see how unstable he is until he can walk in long and low more often
Okay.
because those muscles they mask, and this is the thing with horses, sometimes in the process of getting their balance they go through periods where they look worse before they look better
Healing
because
crisis. Yeah.
well, and sometimes you suddenly see when they release the muscles that are sort of masking deviant movement, they can suddenly look lame on one of their legs. And it's not lame, they're not in pain, but we start to see the weakness that they've been protecting. Or we see once he lets go of those muscles of the top line and they become genuinely supple and long, you might suddenly see, oh my gosh, his pelvis and barrel are all over the place. And that's what he's been protecting and hiding.
Okay.
Yeah. And so right now you go, oh yeah, he looks better than Rainey, but we don't know yet until he's more habituated into the posture of long and low. You know that there's still outer muscles masking whatever the skeleton is doing.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
So anything else with him, or we'll move on
Nope.
to,
We good. Just do what we're
okay.
doing. Be a little bit more.
No, and I'm glad you checked in because balance to me is that whether I'm working with a horse at liberty or with tools, whether I'm giving guidance or letting them explore, to me, all of those things blend It's not kind of a one or the other type deal. And I don't want a horse to be afraid of any of my tools or my aids. I always want them to feel that the horses feel them as helpful,
Yeah.
right? Helpful. And so I go, when we put aids and tools in the category of helpful, it kind of, then it doesn't matter if we're at liberty or using a tool, if we're letting them make a choice for a moment or for an hour, right?
Yeah.
Because even when I'm riding, there's a whole lot of choice in there for the horse. I'm not holding them together. I'm not holding them in balance. That's up to them.
With
Oh,
Geesley, I know, like I have a long range, a really long whip. I can
mm-hmm.
put it over his head when he's further away and ask him to come to me. I can put the whip over his bum and just pet him. But a tap or a stroke with a whip, it's still
It
very
might be a
sensitive. So
trigger. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
very conscientious and not tap, but stroke. And then stroke, tap,
yeah,
stroke. So
yeah,
he's getting more used to it. It takes
yeah.
a little bit extra time, but with him, I think it's worth it.
Well, and
Um,
to me, I don't have to rush to fix that problem. But in the back of my mind, I don't like leaving fear issues inside the horse's psyche. So at some point, I want him to know whips are okay. It's not the
yeah,
whip, it's the person. But
yeah,
there's no hurry to get there. It's like, do not put that at the top of your list.
right. I try to incorporate it slowly,
hmm
and instead of using the whip immediately on his side, okay, I'll let stroking, and then I have like a back scratcher,
hmm
which I start taking with me, and I scratch him, and then I use that one because it's more stiff and I can reach further back. So I figured I do it slowly but surely, and eventually maybe he just loves the whip.
Yes, and that's the thing when you can turn a stress trigger into just an easy part of life that's no big deal. To me, because horses have great memories, but they live in the moment. They do not have the capacity of imagination like we do, and a
Right.
limited capacity of choice. Because their memories are so good, the memory of pain is as real to a horse as if it is still happening. And when I understood that, it broke my heart. And that's why I won't leave a horse with a fear issue, because I go, that old fear issue is as real to them as if it's still happening. And
Yeah.
that's the only thing that motivates me to resolve fear of tools, fear of trailers, fear of whatever. Because
Fear of a halter.
yeah,
For Geezy, fear of a halter.
I don't want that experience in their nervous system anymore. I want to help them work through it. So Rainey's looking good. And again, she's with her, I would in the hand walking, because you're also riding her, I would practice the specific parts of the hand walking to simulate the riding and influence the balance and kind of get you good at the more specific side of the hand walking. Not that you're
Okay.
going to do it with Geesley, but Rainey can handle it. And so again, I would be by her shoulder, use your hand or a whip as your leg aid. Putting yourself at the front of the bareback pad is like putting you in the saddle from the ground. And then only using the rein for a halt aid if needed. And again, getting your sidewalk a little bit tightened up and
Mm-hmm.
then walking with her until letting her choose the speed within the sidewalk until maybe it's easier for her to shift into the posture of long and low.
Okay.
Yeah, because without weight on her back, you're working on the same thing, whether you're riding her or doing the hand walking. And it's lovely with her, it's not going to blow her up to be more specific about the balance, the path of travel, where your body is, all of that, how you use the tools. It will give you a chance to play with being specific and see the benefit of it with Rainy.
Okay.
Because if you do that in the hand walking as your warm up, you will feel that she is actually more stable when you get on her.
Okay.
Mm.
So more narrow corridor.
Yeah, and you can set up, visual elements, physical elements, or you could draw a chalk line. It doesn't matter. The visual just kind of helps us. What we're feeling is when they fall off the sidewalk, their body weight has shifted. Oops, sorry, not across the computer, dear. She's like, not on the keyboard. Okay, anywhere but the keyboard. There, I know. Um,
She is cute.
yes, she's a little
She
firecracker,
just
this one
wants
too.
you.
Yes. She doesn't like other cats, but she loves people.
It doesn't matter.
Um, so with Rainy, maybe set up a visual sidewalk so you kind of get the feel of that because for her, it is directly related to her lateral stability under saddle and her ability to stay engaged with the hindquarters. And even if it's a chalk line, that that narrowing of the path of travel, what we're doing is if they lose a little bit of their body weight control left or right related to rotation, alignment, or engagement, we're we're giving support before it gains momentum to the point that they lose steering. That's how it's related to the balance.
Okay.
Okay.
I noticed I noticed when I'm on the outside, this was just to give her a break and see if she can actually turn in a semicircle without swinging her hind leg over like
Mm-hmm.
she used to, and she's doing pretty good. But when I'm on the straight line, especially going the right turn, she's okay. Like she's this far away from me, and next thing, her whole body is like more of her neck and head and shoulder comes on me. It's like, no, 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 go over there. And with
Yes.
Geesley, I can just go like this. And I'm working on Randy with like, okay, keep your head over there and keep it there, not leaning in,
Yes.
but making it visually instead of using me as a corridor. Maybe I can just do.
Play with both
Yeah.
because I love everything you do and I don't want to discourage it. I want
Oh
to
no.
add to it how either the tools or the path of travel or the more being more specific, especially because you're riding Rainy. She doesn't have the defensive, she doesn't have the history that Geesley has.
Yeah.
And so you can be more specific with Rainy and then feel how that works,
Yeah. I like.
how that is a positive thing for the horses.
Yeah.
And then uh, whether you're riding or hand walking, you could even play with the exact same paths of
Mhm.
travel and feel it from her back and from next to her shoulder and start to get that relationship as an understanding for you how it's really the
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's really the same thing. And even how you use your body in the saddle or at the shoulder, the horses are very sensitive to. And it still has some influence over their balance when we're sort of near where we would sit in the saddle and pretending that we're riding, using our body the same way.
Yeah. I do need to be a little bit even more specific with my own body. And Deb's going to help me with this, hopefully, again today.
Hmm.
When I'm next to her and walking at Liberty, I have a rough time with a lead, but let's say I just walk next to her and I can tell my body sometimes moving over, like losing my balance to the right. And that's where I sometimes draw her in. So every tiny movement to the right, she's so in tune with me that every more tiny movement of the right, she thinks she has to come right too. So
Yes, and
I have to,
that communication of being more specific is exactly how we improve balance. And so that's sort of like that sensitivity is the communication. And then you say with your aid, however you do your aid, no, not that. And they figure out this. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. It started coming like first we talked from here,
Mm-hmm.
and then as those the corridors getting smaller and smaller, and I'm like, okay, because I don't like restrictions. I hate them. My life
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
But sometimes I know I need restrictions or need guidance, whatever, to make things better. So this has started up there, like, no, 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 no. Okay, good, yes.
Well, and that's why, even though we talk about narrowing and corridors, I hate the word restriction as well. So I sort of think of it in terms of when I have a horse that's really struggling, we're starting on a 4-lane highway of steering, if we have steering. And as the internal coordination improves, part of how I know it's improving and the core muscle support is also improving is because we go from a 4-lane highway to a 1-lane highway to a sidewalk to a balance beam. And I go, when I'm
That's what
really precise with my horses, when I ride, as I'm really refining the balance, I feel like a single chalk line that my spine and the horse's spine can stay over a single chalk line, like a balance beam.
that's a very good analogy. I really like this. Four
Yeah,
lane highway, two-way highway sidewalk, and then the balance beam is so okay. I'm still on a two-way highway. Balance
yeah,
beam is my good. No,
yeah.
this is
So,
really I've never heard you say that one, but I think that I really like that.
yeah, because as the internal coordination becomes more and more mechanically accurate, we can stay with our horses on a balance beam and the horse is light. I'm not making a bazillion corrections. I'm not using a whole lot of tools. I'm basically doing what you're doing now. I focus my body on that chalk line. I keep the idea of a rhythm in my body, but I'm not getting ahead or behind the horse. And all of those are very subtle. But the better the mechanical use of our body and the horse's body is, it feels like dancing because it's so easy. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's not this sort of
No.
kind of, thing where, and I think we have the image that to be precise, we have to be tough. And I go, if you just think of it being gradual, it's a gradual process. 4 lanes, 2 lanes, 1 lane, sidewalk, balance beam.
And I don't have a specific goal, but keeping them physically and mentally healthy. That's my goal. If it happens that I ride them a lot, great. If not, I still love them. It's not my, I'm not,
Absolutely.
I don't need to ride to be fulfilled.
No, but the balance is part of their health.
Yeah.
I go, good mechanical skeletal coordination helps the digestion, the circulation, the lymphatic system, the hoof growth, everything, even the metabolism. So the better the skeletal coordination is, good function is always going to support good function. So that's the two things I can do for my horse's health, whether I ride them or don't, which is my 31-year-old mare right now. I
Yeah.
go, I want her to always feel safe and in the parasympathetic nervous system. And I want her body to move well, not because I really plan to ride her ever again, but because it's healthy. It supports her health in her old age and her comfort. So any questions on Rainy, or let's look at the
No, just
next.
something real quick. She is metabolic. She's insulin resistant. Her insulin is good, but the leptin is high. That's so she still has that constant need to eat. So she's wearing a muzzle, unfortunately, right now. Um, and I try to take it off as much as I can, but she sees anything she eats. So she has also swollen saliva glands, which we can't figure out what it is. So lately, she seems her whole entire body seems like a brick. Like her touching her, there's no softness to it. So I'm not sure how much that is actually influencing a lot with her till she goes for bum again.
A lot, a lot. And
Yeah,
so, um, what I see in her from since we met the first time to this video is this horse looks longer to me and softer. She looked more compact nose to tail. Like
she,
she looked
yeah,
more Icelandic-y when we first met. And
yes,
now she looks like Stretch Armstrong, kind of, she just got stretched out and lengthened a little bit, which is a very good sign of your work.
I
That all,
felt that.
yes,
Thank you. Good.
yes, her neck looks longer and even her torso doesn't look so squished. Like Icelandics always kind of look like they got squished together a little bit,
Yes.
right? And they don't have to look that way, but that's what we see all the time. So we don't think it's changeable. Already in the groundwork and taking her to the mounting block, you have this horse that just looks longer and elegant. And that is already the benefit of what you've done with her so far. So as soon as you get on, you see that posture, the neck shortening and the body sort of compacting. That's the Icelandic look, which is
Yeah.
also the posture of extension. Your balance, every little photo and stuff you've sent me is just looking fantastic. And your posts on Facebook and stuff, it looks really good. Like
Uh,
you found this vertical, and it's quite hard when you really balance on your two little seat bones, your whole axial skeleton. It's difficult to keep getting that precise balance and alignment as the horse is changing their balance. And you're doing
yeah, that
fantastic with that.
I'm still struggling at times, but yeah, I was amazed. And I felt my inner thigh actually hugging her, the inner
Yes.
thigh work hugging her. And I've actually had to concentrate, like, oh gosh, I'm leaning far. Am I leaning too far forward? It doesn't matter. It feels good right now. You will see it on video. And
So
when I watch the video, go ahead.
that feeling of the inner thigh hugging, like you said, it's what they were trying to describe in classical literature as sort of the wet towel or the noodle around the horse. It really means that you are truly vertical because you've activated the adductor muscles in your own thighs. They're
Yeah.
the they're the deepest muscle, and on the inner thigh, the adductor muscle is flat. So we feel ourselves naturally snug in on that muscle when our torso is truly vertical. And what you were doing before when you were a little bit back in the seat is you were using the quads and the hamstrings, the outer thigh muscles.
Yeah.
And now you're finding the inner thigh muscle, which is what you activate when the torso is vertical. That's, yeah. And that just confirms what a great job you're doing. Trying to move the us around so I can see the video.
I don't even see us. I only see you, which is good.
Oh, very good. So again, what you're looking for, and this is super important, when we have stabilized the alignment, stabilized the rotation, and gotten a minimal degree of hindquarter engagement, all those things together, the horses voluntarily lengthen the neck, but when you're riding, you feel that suppleness go right underneath you all the way to the tail. And we can sort of see it on the ground, but we really feel it when we ride. And she's still struggling a little bit in the hand walking and the riding to get that change through her spine. It's fine.
Mhm.
It's a work in progress. You may come to a point where you see it's easier for her when I ride, or it's easier for her if I do hand walking. And as soon as you see where she voluntarily shifts into the deeper long and low posture and can hold it during movement, that's where you're going to start spending the bulk of your time. Right now, I think you still have to experiment between basically you're doing the same work, but the difference is you either have weight on her back or you don't. Some
Yeah,
horses progress faster with weight on their back. Other horses progress faster without weight on their back. Each horse is
yeah,
different. So when you start to see, because she's very close to not only lengthening, stabilizing enough that she can lengthen her neck sooner when you work her, but also hold it for more strides. And wherever she can make that postural change sooner and hold it longer is where you're going to start building muscle.
okay,
So whether I ride them or don't ride them, I don't care. Once they're in that new posture, I have just enough skeletal stability that I'm now developing different muscles.
okay,
Okay. So in the posture of long and low, I'm not going to see a lot on the outside, but I'm building the muscles that support a level or an aligned spine, a level back, level pelvis, supports that change in the skeletal use. And I think this is
oh,
really good. What I like is her little ears half out and the slowness, how thoughtful she is in these rides. She's really trying to figure things out, and you're giving her your stability is guiding her, which is always more influential than the leg aid or the rein aid. And she's really concentrating. She's really working on it. And the slowness of the stride usually goes hand in hand with re-engaging or stabilizing the hindquarters. So I'm not surprised to see she's a little on the slow side and you're not discouraging that, which is great. And once she does finally lengthen the neck, you get an idea of the speed at which she can do that. Now, all horses stop at first, which is what she's doing, right? As soon as they let go of the neck, if they don't feel stable on their own hindquarters, they halt a lot. And you just get them going gently again. But I imagine because she halts as soon as she lengthens her neck, that the walk she can maintain with the neck long will be quite slow, which is fine. That's
yeah,
again using different muscles. And so building the muscular strength has zero to do with speed. Zero. It
yeah,
has everything to do with posture.
yeah.
So
Her.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Her moving the bum over is a new thing. So after this one, I wanted to get a video in, so I said, "Yeah, well, it's too bad." Uh, I keep doing the groundwork, and then I asked her to do mounting block. And beginning, she a couple of days she didn't want to come, and I said, "No, I want you here." And I just stood there with her, and I said, "Okay, that was it." So next time I did the same thing. She came, and I said, "All right, I'm going to swing my leg over. You don't need to move your bum. It's just my leg, just to rest it on there." And so I put my leg over, and she actually moved and was like, "All right, I just want to rest it. So bring your bum over. I just want to put my leg over. We can do that." So I put my leg over, and she was like, I said, "Okay, fine. That's it. That's all I wanted. Good, let's go." And yesterday, I asked her the same thing. She came, I put my leg over, and I said, "Okay, I just want to slide on it. Let's just slide on it. No big deal. We're not going to go right unless you want to." So I started putting my leg over, but instead of facing her body, I actually did it from the side.
Hmm.
And that seems to actually help her, or maybe just to change.
Hmm.
So I'm going to change my body from going on her like when she's like this to her being here and me being sideways and lifting my leg over, because that one seemed to treat
There's
her better now.
actually, yeah, like there's actually a specific coordination for mounting that I teach because it throws the horses off balance the least. It makes it easier for us to get on and off. But what I wanted to back up to here.
Okay.
So here, I wanted to see before you got on how she was with her legs. So a couple of things. She's already shortening the neck a little bit. So you could wait and straighten the neck until she just brings it down a notch, takes a breath, relaxes a little bit. She actually looks like she's standing square, which would be the best case scenario. Relaxed and square. She doesn't have the need to move when you get on. But when you get on, I think her step was to stabilize her hindquarter. I don't know that she was avoiding you getting on. Like she kind of stepped her legs wide
Hmm.
and now she's square and then you give her a few minutes. And right now her hind legs are wider than they were when she was standing at the mounting block. So I almost wonder if she's not sort of finding her stability when you go to get on. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And what you did was perfect. And then as soon as she starts moving her feet, there's a point where she lengthened the neck at halt, but then as soon as she moves the feet, she goes a little bit back into extension. So I think she's exploring. I'd give it a little attention that she moves off our steps when you get on, but not too much attention. I think she's just sort of figuring out how to get herself more stable. And as soon as you ask her to walk off, she is she's wobbly a little bit in the hind end, and that's why she tightens the neck. But you take it very slow, you let her think about it. And so each time that's going to get better and easier.
Okay.
But yeah,
I mean,
I think she might just be moving her butt over, not because she doesn't want to be ridden, but because she's sort of going, oh, okay, I need a little wider stance with my hind legs.
okay. Next time I go on, I pay attention how
Hmm.
her back legs are actually are where they are in space and the front legs and see if that makes a difference. I
Hmm.
didn't.
Because you're really starting to get the hindquarters working. And you've got, I think, the straightness part sorted by how you're riding her and keeping her neck straight. And you had already worked on that a bit before we met, too. But I think the hindquarter engagement is where she struggles to fully release the muscles of the top line. She is better engaged. She's getting her hind legs under her better than I've seen in the past, but she's not maybe comfortable there or stable there or quite sure about it. And so I would keep mixing up the riding and the hand walking because if it has more to do with the hindquarters, sometimes the riding is the faster way to get to improve the balance. But if it's too much for her with weight, she'll do it faster hand walking. She'll make that
Okay.
change faster. So play with both, but once she does show you her preference, then spend more time, do both, continue to do both, but the
Yeah.
percentage of time you spend is where always it's easiest for the horse, is the greater
Yeah.
percentage of your ride or your time.
Yeah. And if she gets better, let's say it's better in walk, then the more I walk, the better she's going to be me sitting on her.
Yes.
And eventually. And I think she's really struggling a little bit more with different body parts than compared to before I was a little bit more straight. Because right now I'm not as much supporting her dysfunction as I did before.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure now she's struggling even more to find the different muscles to use.
No, and like we talked about before, we don't always get this lovely positive response as we're changing physical coordination. So, for example, I get on horses sometimes when I'm doing a live lesson with a client, and that horse will get a little anxious just by me sitting straight and stable. I've had
Yeah,
horses suddenly they can't move forward, they can't figure out how to move forward, or they even start walking backwards, or they shift side to side. And all I'm doing is just holding my own balance, not even really giving aids yet. But just that has such a dynamic influence. The horse is suddenly like, I can't move. I don't know how to move. I have no idea how to do this. And so it is that influential. Um, and you just have to be gentle. And sometimes I have to actually put myself out of balance to let the horse move forward and then start balancing myself a little bit more slowly. Just
That's what I
depending.
did when I first started with Rainy. Like for the second ride, I said, and because she was so hesitant, I said, okay, let's just be the wobbly us. And then now I'm going to start focusing more on not going with you gradually. And it
Yes.
took a couple times to get her and me comfortable too, but it really, all right. So we're on the right track,
Yeah.
nothing major. I need to pay attention. Just, brrrm.
I think Rainy would be the better horse for you to venture into the idea of precision with and
Okay.
start to experience how precision is beneficial to the horse. It's not ever at the horse's expense, which is sort of what we see in the horse world. I just had this. I loved liberty work. I loved riding bareback and bridleless because I had grown up as a competitive rider over controlling everything. And
Yeah.
the freedom I found in letting go and not making it was like I had a bond with my horse that I had never had before. It was beautiful. And then I finally had to come around to the middle way and go, okay, I don't have to control, but I can guide. I can ask for precision, but still leave that room for the horse to find their own way. And
Yeah.
that's what I think you can experience that middle way with Rainy, but not yet Geisle.
Yeah. But I
Geisle's
can,
not ready, but Rainy
right.
is ready. Hmm.
But I can play around with Geasley to have his whole thing a little bit more concentrated, narrowed, but
Gent
relaxed.
Gently. Hmm.
Yeah.
Just like you intuitively did for Rainy, you said, oh, she's resisting moving forward. So you said, let me go back to moving, and we're back on our two-lane road, right? Then gradually you went to the sidewalk, and then now you're kind of on the balance beam with your
Yeah.
riding. And so now she has to kind of catch up with what you're doing. And that just requires physical change.
And
So,
I feel I I need to ride her for myself because I still haven't I'm still working on balance, on concentrating on balance,
mhm.
but not feeling her. So unless I get to the point where I feel what she's actually doing under me, I can resist her movement. Right now, I'm just staying balanced. If she goes left or right, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, okay, where am I? So eventually, I like to get the feel for her.
Well,
So
and
if she
this
goes,
is the first most important step for the rider is if we can't control ourselves, we can't feel the horse, nor can we influence the movement. So
yeah,
continuing, that's why I said if she happens to get more steps, more consistency of long and low in the hand walking, still ride her.
okay,
But I go, you might do 30 minutes of groundwork and 10 minutes of riding
yeah,
versus half and half. But I think it's important to continue with both for
both of them.
Rainy and for you.
Yeah,
And if it ends up the riding is better for her, do a little 10-minute warm up hand walking and then get on and spend the bulk of your time riding.
okay,
Yeah. But I'm just loving your progress, Tina.
good for Manny, yes, and Geasley, and myself for
Yes.
them, obviously,
All
yeah.
all three of you. All three of you. And I think for as you play about around with the balance and being specific with Geasley, one of the things about improving the mechanical skeletal coordination is it also gives people and horses kind of a sense of safety inside their own skin, which we can lose if we're unstable or we've been living under stress for a long period of time. And this is why, although I think it's why he came to you and was interested. He could sort of sense that with your body and Rainey's body. And I think that sense of internal empowerment and feeling safe inside his own skin is really what he's looking for.
And it's been really, and it makes me cry again. He's still coming to the mountain block. Uh, but I don't have the feeling he's saying get on.
I don't
I
either.
put my leg on it and he's like, okay, good. And he moves a little bit around almost to balance himself. Like, am I allowed to move kind of?
Hmm.
But he still wants, I think to me, it's like he's saying, I'm still good with that,
Hmm.
but we're not going to go ride.
Yeah.
But I'm still trusting you to do the right thing when you on the block to either ride me or put your leg on it or whatever. Do the right thing. I trust
Yes.
you in that. And
Yes.
that is really, I mean, for a horse in general, or I mean, even for a human would be very big. So
Yes.
there's a lot of going on in him.
No, and somebody asked me once, I was rehabbing a horse that had really been around the block a few times, and I restart them like they've never been ridden before. He had become unsafe to ride. And this lady who is also a psychologist was watching me the first time when I started getting on him, and I get on all young horses and rehabs bareback because I feel safer that way. And I get on and off a lot. I ask permission, I take it slow. And this lady observing, she said, if that horse were a person, I would say he has PTSD. And I go, horses have PTSD. I go, there's a lot of them. I've met many in rehab that have PTSD and it's out of their control. So what you're doing at the mounting block with Geisle is very, very gently, not triggering him to go back there, but helping him heal from all that humongous amount of stress and fear that is post-traumatic stress. It's the same, I think, in horses as people.
Yeah. Then I think all humans have had trauma somewhere, and
Yeah.
horses too.
And to watch that horse trust me enough just for me to walk around like 10 steps at a time and get off, right? 10
Yeah.
steps off the mounting block, jump off, redo it. To watch him relax and work through that fear was made me cry. It was just like
It's, for him, it's
so,
was amazing.
yeah. And that's
And
what
I
I
don't.
mean that I go, we can't leave them with the fear lurking in their psyche. It's like if otherwise it's always in there.
That's what was my dream. If I can sit on him, if he allows me to sit on him once,
Hmm.
that will release everything he had carried with him for so long, and he can go on in life or across the Rainbow Bridge to not have this human on my back means chaos, pain,
Yes. Yes.
confusion. And
Yes.
if that's what it was once, that's all I ever dreamed of. If he wants more, then he will get more. And
Yeah.
I'm never going to sit on him with reins on him. The first time I sit and let him, and I'm ready for him to walk around, I'll not have any reins.
No,
I have maybe a minute.
I start most horses in a halter and a lead rope.
Yeah. So
Bareback
there's
and a
no,
halter and a lead rope, and people think I'm crazy. And I go, that's where I feel safe because I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off.
yeah.
I go, I'm not going to force them to keep doing as they get more scared with me up there. I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to jump off, redo it, go back to the mounting block, see if they give them a little break. And I go, I can redo it 10,000 times. No problem. Yeah. But this is
I think I'm
awesome, Tina. So let me stop
good.
the video. Any final questions?
No, at this point, I'm good. Just, did we stop the recording?
No, I haven't stopped the recording yet.
Okay.
Any,
Yeah.
are you done?
No.
Done?
Yep. I'm
Okay.
done.
Done,
I'm
done.
done.